Everyone. This morning I'll be sharing information that needs to come with a strong warning. The details of this investigation are gruesome, and the actions of the suspect are nothing short of pure evil. But first and foremost, I want all of you to know who Zamil, Limon, and Nahida Bristy were. They were dedicated students and loyal friends. They were accountable and responsible, which is why when they didn't show up to meetings, stop answering calls, and missed appointments, their friends immediately knew something was very wrong. What began as a missing persons case ended with the discovery of a monstrous crime. Our community has been left heartbroken, and the victims' families shattered after this tragic loss. I'm going to walk you through this case, and I want you to know, I knew from the very beginning we had two options: to find them or find the truth. On April 17th, the University of South Florida Police Department was notified that our first victim, had been reported missing. This was very unusual. Like I'd mentioned, she was responsible. She never missed her thesis appointments. She never missed work. She was responsive. So the University of South Florida Department, who I have to thank for being absolutely an incredible partner, Chief Daniels, the University of South Florida President, thank you. Thank you for your help in this case. They immediately started looking back and creating a timeline of when she was last seen. Video that we collected from the last time she had left the office in the afternoon on the day prior, on the 16th. The next day, on April 18th, we get a phone call from a concerned friend of Zamil saying, hey, he also is very responsible, dedicated, responsive, didn't answer his calls, didn't show up to his appointments. Something's wrong. Working so closely like we do with the University of South Florida Police Department, we immediately notice when our missing persons detectives and the detective that they have working at the university realize that, hey, these cases are connected. We should work them together, and that's when this collaborative effort started. So our detectives believe that the first stop should be back at our second victim's residence. So we go to Zamil's residence, where he lives with two roommates. One roommate continues to be elusive. The stories are inconsistent, almost to the point where he will talk about anything, loves to talk about himself, and this continues and carries throughout the entire investigation, except when we want to talk about either one of our two victims. Then he immediately starts becoming elusive and deceptive. The other roommate, we learned very quickly that he wasn't involved, begins to become extremely cooperative. And at that point, he, at the initial stages, when this is still a missing persons case, notifies us that something's wrong. The doormat by the door's missing. There's some pots and pans missing. So our detectives, as hard charging as they are, their first stop is the dumpster. They learned that the trash compactor in the complex hasn't been emptied yet in these couple days. This is where we get the first break in our case. We go out there dumpster diving. These detectives getting inside of the dumpster and empty the entire contents. And they find Zamil's glasses, his student ID, his wallet, and his clothes, which are extremely bloodied at the time. Again, this is where we get our first break. This is where, during this timeline, this missing persons becomes a missing person endangered case. Now we ramp up our efforts, because now we know, and you guys heard the same theory that we have that's been dispelled and unproven, that the two of them were in arranged marriage, that the two of them were in love, the two of them ran away together. We were able to dispel that immediately at this point, knowing that we're going a different direction. At the time, we believe that our now suspect was at just a point of interest. We needed more information. So we have enough evidence to get a search warrant. We go back to the residence and we serve the search warrant. And the search warrant's for the residence, for the roommates, both roommates' phones, for their person, and for their cars. They go into the residence, and we have some amazing technology, one of it being Blue Star that identifies the presence of blood. And when they deploy Blue Star, they can see in the kitchen area there's a large pool of blood. They see that the blood continues down the hallway and into our suspect's bedroom. The technology is so precise and finite that we can see the outline of a human being on the floor next to our suspect's bed where he was curled up in a fetal position. We then examine his phone. His entire history had been wiped clean. No text messages, no emails, no GPS data. His search history totally cleared. So it takes us a little bit of time at that point because we have to do a forensic deep dive onto the phone. And what we found by doing a forensic deep dive is where we found a lot of disturbing searches. He searches for, can a knife penetrate a skull? Can a neighbor hear a gunshot? Can you bury a body in a trash bag and throw it in a dumpster? While he's conducting these searches, we also see and discover that he's making purchases for large, heavy-duty black contractor bags, Lysol wipes, duct tape, lighter fluid, a lighter. As he's ordering some of the items from Amazon, some of them come from DoorDash. I wanted everyone in the room to think about this. These searches were conducted days before our two victims went missing. This was calculated. This is what makes this so premeditated. We then look at him. He's got a laceration to his left pinky, and on the back of his left tricep, he has a deep laceration where he should have been properly sutured. He should have went and got stitches. He was unable to explain where he got those, what we believe is defensive wounds. At that point, we turn to the car. In the trunk, very little blood. On the floorboard of the passenger side of his vehicle, again deploying Blue Star technology, we see a large amount of blood there. We later find out that that's Nahida's blood. That comes back to her. The GPS in the car, once again, wiped totally clean. While we're conducting this forensic deep dive on his phone to see where he had been days prior, we're able to determine that he had traveled over to Clearwater, the Sand Key area. We confirmed that by looking at a video surveillance from a nearby fire station that shows him get out of the car. And he's around the Sand Key area. Over in Clearwater, he spends a short amount of time there. Then as we're examining the longitude and latitude coordinates, we see he goes on the Howard Franklin Bridge and he stops there for a short amount of time. So at this point, we make the decision to launch a surge full of manpower to go out and start an extensive search. Knowing that he spent an amount of time there, we should find and locate our victims there because we believe, again, he's not a suspect, he's a person of interest. We let him go. Yes, he's under 24-hour surveillance, but we're conducting this exhaustive search now at this point. Our Marine unit, our divers who continued nonstop, our investigators, our professional staff that were out there helping any way they could, our aviation team, our drone team, again, nonstop. As some of our detectives are examining the latitude and longitude of some of where he had been, they're traveling northbound on the Howard Franklin Bridge, on the Pinellas side of the bridge, and they see a large black trash bag sitting on the shoulder of the road all by itself. They stop. They walk up, and as they're approaching it, they immediately smell that unique smell of human remains when it's in that decomposition phase. They go up, they physically feel the outside of it, and realize that there's human remains there. They stop what they're doing, knowing that this could be evidence. We're in Pinellas County at this point, and they contact the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office, who immediately responds, along with the Pinellas County Medical Examiner's Office, who takes custody of this bag and goes back. We learned during this that it is our victim, Zamil. We're able to determine that because he's in the early stages of decomposition. So we knew it was him through fingerprints that were obtained through the Department of Homeland Security when he had entered the country. When I talk about gruesome, he had been stabbed several times, which ultimately was the cause of his death. He was bound in front at his hands and at his ankles. His legs up towards his buttocks area was almost completely severed, so he could be bent together and make it easier to place in a trash bag. He was left on the side of the road. As gruesome as this murder was, he was literally left on the side of the highway like a piece of trash. As we're out there and this is occurring, and remember, this investigation's large, it's expansive, and it's very fluid and very dynamic. As this is occurring, we get a phone call from our suspect's family that the night before he had battered and committed a domestic violence against them. He had been acting erratic. He got out of the shower with only a towel wrapped around him. He approaches his sister and begins to almost in like a humping fashion trying to grind on his sister, and at one point tries to kiss his sister. His sister has difficulty trying to push him away, and she is not able to freely leave that confrontation because he's able to overpower her. He batters the family at the same time. So we try to make contact with him. We know he's inside the residence. The family tells us, and we have him under constant surveillance. We know he's there. He refuses to answer the phone. He refuses to come out. We make the decision based on the violent nature that we know this individual is capable of. At the same time, we learn that a few days prior, he had purchased a firearm from a pawn shop. Now, later on, we determined that he never picked up that firearm, but we didn't know that. We didn't have that information at the time. Again, very dynamic, very fluid. So we activate our SWAT team and negotiators to try to bring this to a peaceful resolution. After several hours of trying to make contact, we're at the point where we made a determination we're going to go in and physically remove him from the house, place him under arrest. Right about that point, as you guys have seen the video and are watching the video now, he surrenders peacefully and he's placed under arrest without incident. At that time, we begin conferring with the state attorney who has been there since moment one, walking through this, and we're able to charge him with a bunch of charges that at that point, later on, charge him ultimately with the two premeditated murders of our two victims. So at this point, the search still continues. We still need to find Nahida. We still need to locate her. So we're still conducting that search. We get a phone call 2 days later that two recreational kayakers are out again on the Pinellas County side. And while this is occurring, the deputies and Marine unit are doing a great job trying to determine the tide and when they're occurring and what the tide patterns are to see, hey, how far of a search pattern do we need? The divers are still in the water. As you guys were out there covering, it was a long several days as we were trying to locate our two victims, especially now knowing that we have one victim, the other one should still be in the nearby area. As one of our kayakers is fishing, his fishing line snags on a bag. He has to go further into the mangroves. He smells something as he describes as undescribable. And when he went and got closer to remove his fishing line, he sees that a plastic bag has been opened. There's been salt water in there. He can't tell what it is, but it looks like a human body, so he does the right thing and contacts law enforcement. We immediately relocate over there, contact the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office Marine Unit that's already out there with us, the Pinellas County Medical Examiner, Pinellas County Forensic Science Department, who came out and took custody. Unfortunately, because of the conditions that her body was left in, it was more in those advanced stages of decomposition, and we weren't able to just do a fingerprint. So that's what took longer. Today, I'm able to confidently stand in front of you and tell all of you that we have located Nahida Bristy. We have contacted her family. We are now actively working to release both bodies for religious reasons back to the families who live in Bangladesh. We were able to determine that this was Nahida. Unfortunately, couldn't do it because of fingerprints, but we did it because of DNA. We were able to confirm DNA, some dental work that she had done, and the clothing that she still had on from the video that we saw the April 16th when the University of South Florida Police Department narrowed down was the last time that she was observed on campus. I want to take just a moment and close with some thank yous. This is a result. When you stand here and talk about the success of a case, obviously we all wish the definition was success is that we would have located both of them alive and that we wouldn't be standing in front of the cameras. But when you look at the good old-fashioned police work, and part two is the partnership and collaboration that we share with surrounding agencies, surrounding counties, state and the federal level. That's the reason I'm able to stand in front of you today and talk about the success. Success in terms of recovering both of these victims, hoping that the family members will get some semblance of comfort and peace now, knowing what happened to their family members and that they are returning home to be buried by their loved ones. The collaboration has been phenomenal. The University of South Florida Police Department that we constantly work with, phenomenal job, seamless transition on this case. The Pinellas County Sheriff's Office, Sheriff Galtieri, thank you. Thank you to you and your entire team for being out there with us in the hot, long days and never giving up in this search. The Pinellas County Medical Examiner's Office for acting so quickly so we could determine who they were, and again, for religious reasons, get them returned back to Bangladesh to their families. The Pinellas County Forensics and Science team that came out, once again, phenomenal job in doing such a job. A phenomenal job in providing us the information that we're able to turn to the state attorney's office, which leads me to my next expression of gratitude. State Attorney Susie Lopez, you and your team were there from the very moment we decided that and determined that these individuals were endangered. You were out there, your entire team, your lead prosecutor, wonderful job. Thank you for your continued partnership. And lastly, to the men and women of the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office, those who worked 18, 19 hours a day, around the clock, never giving up. It's your grit, your determination, your passion that allows us to stand up here today and be able to announce the success of this investigation. Now, I want all of you to know that there are a lot more details to share, but I'm not able to share them now. Yes, our suspects in custody, the victims are on their way being returned to their families, but there's a lot of investigation that still continues and has continued to this point. A lot of deep dive records, a lot of subpoenas that we're waiting for answers for that may result in additional charges forthcoming. Again, I can't comment further because I never want to attack the integrity of the investigation that these hard-working detectives continue to do.
Sure. Just forgive the bluntness of the question, but what's the motive?
Great question. The question is, what's the motive? That's part of what we're still trying to determine. At this point, we don't know what the motive is. The why, we don't know yet. We're still working. I know that after briefing and meeting and being briefed with the detectives yesterday, they're anxiously searching for that as well. You search for the truth, and second to that is you search for the why, and I hope we find that out.
How much can you get into the relationship between Nahida and Zamil? I mean, is it a romantic relationship? Is it friend? Just how far can you go in establishing that?
Yeah, it's not me trying to conceal it. We don't know. We know that they're very religious, that they come from a culture where marriages are arranged. We're not aware of a romantic relationship to this point. We knew that that was a theory. At one point, our suspect even gave us that theory that they were in a romantic relationship. He went from, I hadn't seen them, to finally admitting when we revealed and showed him that, well, hold on, your GPS said this. Well, I dropped them off. Yeah, but you went on the other side of the bridge, and then you came on this side of the bridge. Well, I stopped and dropped them off, then I'm on the other side of the bridge, and then I walked up just to wave goodbye to them. I mean, this is someone very calculated, but
Has the suspect said anything admitting to this?
no, the suspect would love to talk to our detectives about everything, right up to the point where we were asking about our two victims. I think the concerning part is that he was non-reactive. He was callous and showed zero emotion. Even when we confronted him with information that we had, he evoked and didn't want to answer any more questions.
Do you have any indication?
Never showed any emotion.
Do you have any indication if were the two victims at the residence when the murders happened, and were they murdered around the same time, or was one there and then someone else showed up or something?
Yeah, the question is that do we believe that both victims were murdered around the same time inside the residence? Yes, I don't want to say unequivocally right now. I want to remain someone who's in the fact business. That's a speculation business. But we believe based on the data that we have, and again, that's part of the investigation that will continue. Timeline-wise, location-wise, yes, we believe that's the case, but I can't say with entire certainty at this point. We're still working through that.
Sheriff, I just want to add to that. I know you were saying that we're still working to figure out whether they were murdered at the same time, but it said that she was missing from her place of work and he was missing from his apartment. How did she end up in his apartment to then be a part of this murder investigation?
Yeah, we believe by looking at text messages, and I'll see how much I can answer without trying to be elusive, that they were communicating. Her last communication, what they used instead of using text messages, which you'll be charged an international fee, they wanted to save money, so they were communicating through Facebook Messenger. And we have those messages back and forth, so that's what leads us to believe that they were together at some point and that they were both at the residence at that point. We can look back and see what time we knew that she had left and what time her and Zamil were communicating back and forth. Again, I can't say we're certain, we're confident. We believe and feel that they were together and that they were murdered in nearby proximity and around the same time frame. But again, I just don't want to be misleading in case that turns out for some crazy reason that's not the case.
Sheriff, you talked about a lot of digital evidence that was very disturbing with the ChatGPT responses and the questions that he was sending. Do you believe that ChatGPT should be informing law enforcement when they see searches like this?
Absolutely. I think we should. We're seeing this be a pattern of behavior when people are committing the FSU shooter, wanting to know the best way and what best weapons to use to be able to commit a mass shooting. To this, and there's some other examples that the media's been highlighting recently. I think it should be no different than on Meta, Facebook, and everything else. They find something disturbing, they notify us. I will tell you this: they've been cooperative. We've subpoenaed them. The forensic dive that we're able to get isn't able to go back, but only so far. We're hoping they'll continue to be cooperative and give us the rest of his searches. And again, that will help us with this case even more. This might even help us provide that why that we're all searching for.
Sheriff, how was the suspect able to transport the bodies from simply his apartment to the Howard Franklin Bridge without being caught?
Well, I don't think that it would look abnormal or out of place. His roommate told us that he had used, there's a cart that a lot of college students live in this apartment complex, and he used one of the carts. They had seen the cart was missing, so he used the cart to transport the bodies to his car. Once they're in their car, you know, how do you see the inside of a car when you're driving or you're a passerby? We also believe this was late at night. It was at dark when he decided to do this. From information we have, we believe it to be after 11 p.m. at night. So there wouldn't be a lot of people in the area. It would be dark. It would be a little more appropriate as he, I think, chose that time to try to dispose of the bodies, knowing that there's less people around. There's less people on the highway, less people in his apartment complex, making it more easily concealable.
I assume that the roommate wasn't there when the murder happened and when the killings happened, but how suspicious was the roommate, and were there steps taken to hide this from the roommate that the roommate could see through?
No, the second roommate's been extremely cooperative. He's the one that gave us the details that ultimately led us to our.
But I mean, was the second roommate suspicious of what had happened? I mean, how much had they seen in the apartment that made them say, wait a minute?
No, I think he wasn't home. He knew that some of our suspect behavior was erratic. Some of the statements he made all the time were disturbing. He didn't understand that. The students had even asked the apartment complex to move him out of their apartment. They were concerned. There were several complaints made to the apartment complex because of his pattern of behavior being disturbing and the comments that he would make.
What are your thoughts for two people who came halfway around the world to get a better life and to get an education and to come to a great school, and they wind up going back in body bags like this?
This contradicts everything what Florida and the United States stands for. People come here because everything is better here than in anywhere else in the world. And to have to make contact with the families and tell them that their loved ones are missing, to call them back later again and tell them that we found them, but they're deceased, and then to describe some details that they wanted to know, how they were killed because they were stabbed as many times as they were, it goes against every grain that Americans stand for.
Last question?
Sheriff, you mentioned that when Zamil was discovered, that he was bounded. Do you know if that was pre or post-mortem that he was bounded?
At this point, I wouldn't want to speculate. I didn't ask the detectives that, only that they found him in that condition. Anything I'd say would just be speculative, and I don't want to be that person.
Sheriff, were these three roommates individually assigned before they began living together in the shooting?
They were. They were all individual. And the way that this housing set up is being described to me is there's a large common area, and then they each have their three rooms where they're able to lock the door and have the privacy there.
What advice do you have to other students that might be worried that their apartment complex isn't taking their complaints seriously?
Yeah, that's a great question. The question is, what should University of South Florida or any college student do if they have suspected behavior and believe that their safety is in danger and the apartment complex isn't taken as serious? Contact law enforcement. Even better so and more so, I've talked to the University of South Florida president about this. Contact the University of South Florida or any university. Contact the school administration. The school administration contracts with these complexes, saying, okay, here, you meet certain standards and we're gonna recommend that students be housed there. After talking to the University of South Florida president, he's made it clear that his administration is gonna visit all complexes, and if they don't adhere to a particular code of conduct and what their standard, he's gonna stop recommending them as places where students should seek housing.
Have you ever heard about that suspect's erratic behavior before?
We have not. We have not. He does have a criminal history that we provided to you, a domestic against his brother, and at some point in a separate complex, he had entered an apartment that wasn't his, and when they caught him inside the apartment, he pushed one of the maintenance workers down, and that was a charge. It's criminal history, but no erratic behavior that's been notified to us prior to this incident.
Sheriff, are there any drugs found in the system, the suspect?
No, but a toxicology report wouldn't be back that quick. That's certainly, again, I hate to defer, I'm not that person. But again, there's so much that's still ongoing and that's yet to be determined. I wanted to get in front of all of you today to tell you what we had. I think Chief Maurer did a wonderful job throughout the week, and every time we had something with our public affairs office, we wanted to put it out. We wanted to make sure we were fully transparent and we were given little pieces. The intent today was now give you this whole overview. From A to Z, I wanted to show you everything. Let's put it all together now and where we're at today.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you guys. Have a wonderful and safe day.